Hey everyone, Lewis aka Spider-Man 1991 here with my weekly comic book review. One of my comics didn't arrive this week, so it will be featured in next week's video. As usual, I will be talking about the comic books that I read for this week, June 6th, 2018, and I'll be talking about them from worst to best. Let's get started. Green Arrow, number 41. Green Arrow is called to help supervise the prison transfer of Parasite. Unfortunately, a riot happens and now Green Arrow is trapped in the prison. This story wasn't really that fun to read. It just feels like, okay, superhero trapped in a supervillain during a riot, seen it before, and having Parasite be the main villain, he's Superman's villain, I don't understand. Overall, this story was just basically filler. I'd say skip it. Go-Go Power Rangers, number 10. The more that I'm reading Go-Go Power Rangers, because of Shattered Grid, I'm starting to realize that it doesn't really affect the plot that's going on in My Morphin, and it just feels more like a B story that just happens to take place at the same time as Shattered Grid. There are some cool elements in this book. For example, the Megazord that we see is called the Grave Zord, and it's a Megazord that future Kimberly has that was made from various decommissioned droids in the future. There's a really cool moment where Alpha 5 is able to hold his own against future Kimberly, aka the Ranger Slayer, before present Kimberly shows up. There are a few elements about this series that I feel like if you haven't read it from the beginning, you're going to be confused by. For example, the character Michael, who is Kimberly's boyfriend at the time, he's kind of involved in this, but I think in order to understand who he is, you have to go back and read the first 7 issues of Go-Go Power Rangers in order to understand really his role in this. Man of Steel, number 2. My enthusiasm for this arc, like most Brian Michael Bendis stories, quickly goes downhill after the first issue. So basically in this issue, Superman still deals with more fires in Metropolis while pretty much dodging everyone who wants to know if he's okay since Lois and John are gone. And meanwhile, the alien known as Rogol Zar makes his way to Earth when he hears about Superman's existence. The last issue had a very good opening. It didn't really reveal much about the plot, but this issue didn't really fix that problem. We don't really find out more. The only significant thing that happens plot-wise is just Rogol Zar figures out where Superman is and decides to go to Earth. That's basically it. We still have no idea what happened to Lois and John and what's going on with them. I'm honestly worried and I'm pretty sure they've already said that it's not going to be something that will be resolved by the end of Man of Steel, but I really hope this is something that Bendis really doesn't stretch out, because I think after a year and a half of stories where we've got Superman stories that focused on his role, his marriage with Lois, his relationship being a father to John, and then having them just cast aside like that, it just feels pretty messed up. The only positive thing I can say about this is just I still like the way that Brian Michael Bendis provides Superman's voice in this issue. I think he's very good at dialogue, but that's not enough for me to say that this is a good issue. Steve Rogers' descendant, Jack Rogers, accidentally revives the Red Skull, who still has the energies of the Cosmic Cube. Jack is able to convince the Red Skull to join him and eliminate the Kree who have infiltrated the American government. Okay, this issue just really felt like a very quick wrap-up, trying to get this story done by the end, so that we can have it finished by the end of next issue, so that the new Captain America title will start in July. Honestly, I've loved Mark Waid's run on this, but this whole future descendant of Steve Rogers arc, I'm just kind of wondering, like, what was the point of any of this? It doesn't feel connected to what Waid already wrote on the recent Captain America issues. So why is this happening? I don't understand why we're getting this. Why can't his finale be something with Steve Rogers instead of Steve's great-grandson? Honestly, I'd say at this point just skip it. Nightwing, number 45. Nightwing finally connects the recent murders in Bloodhaven with the new Phantom VR boxes that are being installed in their people's homes. When Dick makes the connection, suddenly the VR box installed in his apartment spawns an artificial malware intelligence called Worm, and really what happened, and that's what happens in this issue. This is actually a pretty interesting story, because right when Dick realizes what Worm is, he tries to actually fight Worm, but he can't because Worm is just a hologram, which was pretty funny. Also, there was a really interesting opening where we have because these VR sittings are able to manipulate the residents, all 5 of their senses, Worm kind of manipulates Dick in the opening into thinking that he just had a one-night stand with Barbara Gordon, and this led to a very interesting point where Dick has to like take another look at his relationship with Barbara, and it's a very interesting thing. And I think Dick Grayson, fans of the Dick Grayson Barbara Gordon ship would really enjoy it. And it's ultimately though this sort of insight when Dick looks into his relationship and he calls Barbara that leads him to realizing that, okay, something's really messed up with this VR system. So far, I think this is a very good Nightwing. It shows some promise to it, but it is I'm still kind of adjusting to the idea that Nightwing is going to a monthly schedule instead of every 2 weeks, which we've had since Rebirth. But still, this is a pretty good issue. Astonishing X-Men number 12. This is the finale to Charles Soule's run on Astonishing X-Men. Shadow King returns, but thanks to X, who is the resurrected Charles Xavier, and Psylocke linking all the psychics on Earth together, they're able to kill the Shadow King yet again. X then erases the memories of this adventure from all of the X-Men that were with them, except for Psylocke, because he feels like he can still help her, and also to make sure that if there's any trace of the Shadow King remaining, Psylocke can quickly take care of X. And I kind of liked how in the final moments when Psylocke asks, like, "Are you gonna go back to the school now?" X just responds, "No, that was Charles Xavier's dream, and it's doing fine. I, however, have a new dream." I really liked how this book concluded everything. I really enjoyed how Charles Soule was able to use X's mind-wiping abilities to be the reason why this particular group of X-Men decides to disband. Also, it's great that we're not exactly going to dive directly into Charles Xavier's resurrected form. I think this is a good way because I think right now Charles Soule is very busy with the return of Wolverine, and maybe once that's done, he could probably start to dive a bit more into the resurrected Charles Xavier, now known as X. So I thought this was a very good conclusive issue. Like, I just read this and I had no regrets. I felt like I don't have to read the next issue of Astonishing X-Men because all of it's taken care of. Plus, there's a new creative team on board. So now that Charles Soule's run is ending, I like how it basically ends and that you can just leave this title without having any compulsive need to, like, okay, maybe there's going to be some stuff that the next team's going to touch on. No, you don't need any of that. You can just move on, which is very great, and I like it a lot. Next up, AntMan The Wasp, number 1. Scott Lang needs Nadia Pym's help to get back to Earth for his daughter Cassie's birthday party. Unfortunately, Scott messed up the timing of the beam and wound up trapped in the microverse. Nadia immediately notices and follows Scott into the microverse, where they both have to rescue some native creatures from a monster. However, during the process, Nadia loses her sight. So you're probably thinking that the only reason we've got this miniseries is because the Ant-Man the Wasp movie is coming out 1 month from now. You're probably right. I feel like that, yes, they needed something, I think, in the comics universe-wise to help sort of tie into the movie, but I think Mark Waid is the great guy for the job. Yes, I did kind of have a less positive opinion about his recent Cap issue, but overall, Mark Waid's work from Marvel has been pretty much widely well received, and I think he's crafted a very good story with this. I think having 2 of the small heroes going into the microverse is a great concept. Plus, there's an interesting dynamic between Scott and Nadia, because Nadia is Hank's daughter, and Scott basically became Ant-Man because he originally stole Hank's equipment to help his daughter, but he did it and when Hank found out about this, he decided to let Scott keep the equipment and become Ant-Man full-time. And there's even a moment at the beginning of the issue when Scott's pleased because he's basically a father where at first Nadia's like not taking him seriously because he stole her father's equipment, but when Scott says, like, you know, he wants to be with his daughter, that pretty much strikes a chord for Nadia, and she agrees to help him. So I think they're definitely going to have a very rocky start, but I think by the end of this journey they'll probably become much closer colleagues. Also, I really liked how Mark Waid sort of gave more humor into Scott Lang's character, and I think that's also something that I noticed in the last Ant-Man series by Nick Spencer, and I think that's mostly in part due to Paul Rudd's portrayal in the MCU. Overall, though, I think that if you just want If you do want to read Ant-Man the Wasp, I say go for it, even if you are a casual fan, because this is also very good for new readers. There's nothing only thing you need to know is just Scott was with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a bit, and then you can just jump on board with this. Oh, plus this isn't an ongoing series, it's only 5 issues. Archie, number 31. The Blossom twins' biological father, Eddie Shears, arrives at the Riverdale High School dance. Eddie then has the twins call their parents to transfer all their money to his account and have a getaway helicopter ready, and the twins are a little excited about it. And there is a moment at the end when Archie, who was playing at the time, tries to sneak up behind Eddie and knock him out with his guitar, but Eddie immediately notices, and, well, it doesn't, and Archie's plans are foiled. He's not dead. Archie's still fine, for now, maybe. Okay, so this story is a very nice is somewhere in the middle between the lightheartedness of the usual Archie comics to the darker stories that we always see in Riverdale. This is definitely somewhere in the middle. I'm still very interested to see how this plays out, but it's not something that I'm like super anxious to see. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to the next issue, but I don't really need to like read it right away, so to speak. Doctor Strange, number 1. In order to bring magic back to Earth, Doctor Strange decides to go into outer space to find some other sources of magic on other worlds, and see if he can't bring some back to Earth to help jumpstart the magic on Earth. Doctor Strange in space. This has to be the most crazy concept for a Marvel character. Like, it just feels so out there. Like, Doctor Strange in outer space. He's not a character that you usually associate with that environment, but surprisingly enough, this series finds a way to make it work. And I really think that's in part to how they sort of presented it. The issue opens up with Doctor Strange in his prime as Sorcerer Supreme. He's easily defeating demons and otherworldly invaders. He's just like, yeah, I'm the Sorcerer Supreme, you can't stop me. And then we cut to present day where magic is slowly fading away. Then we cut to Stephen. After it's gone, he's basically sort of becoming more socially withdrawn. He's very much focused on himself, but then when he talks to Tony Stark about this one night, Tony gives him the idea that, you know, how'd you used to get magic back whenever this happened? And he said, I have to draw energy from other dimensions. And he says, well, instead of going to other dimensions, why don't you go out to outer space? So Tony lends him a spaceship and he goes out there. I really liked how this issue presented that Stephen's journey isn't just about bringing magic back to Earth, but being a tale of self-discovery for him to sort of like get back to the way he was before, that he could get back to being like the Sorcerer Supreme again, and like try to get some success going again. I thought that was very good, and the way it presented it, it definitely feels like Doctor Strange going to space isn't just a gimmick, but feels like a story that's going to have some very lasting character development for Dr. Stephen Strange. If you are a Doctor Strange fan, I highly recommend you get this because it's also a great jumping on point. I didn't read the last Doctor Strange series with where Loki was in charge and stuff, but reading this, I felt like I didn't have to read it. It was a very good jumping on point. So if you haven't read Doctor Strange in a while, I would say this is a good time to jump on board. Batman, number 48. This issue was insane. Okay, so basically, in order to find Batman's wedding, Joker starts going to weddings and killing people. Well, this issue, Batman finally finds him. And the best part about this issue is that all of the dialogue comes from Joker. Joker is the only person talking. The only other instances are just Batman having one line. And then later at the end of the issue, when Catwoman is watching outside the church and she hears a bomb go off, then she decides to interfere and she's sort of like mocking what Batman said about why she shouldn't go in. Okay, this is definitely a good way to lead up to the 50th issue, because this is one part of a two-part arc. That this issue definitely focuses on Joker's relationship with Batman for a bit, and it's a good way to lead into Catwoman having to deal with the fallout next issue, because it's sort of going to set up like how Joker's going to deal with Batman now that he's going to be married to Catwoman. And I think it's great. Honestly, the way Tom King wrote the Joker in this issue proves he is just a major czar at dialogue. I've really loved the way he's given his characters voices throughout his entire Batman run, but this issue with the Joker is probably the best example of why he's so great and why he's definitely... And at this point now, I understand why he got the job writing Batman. Okay, my last book, my pick of the week is Justice League #1. The Justice League deals with the totality of the Source Wall's energy heading towards Earth. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor and his new Legion of Doom take over Vandal Savage's base, which was something that apparently Savage hired Luthor's company to build. If you read Dark Knight's Metal and Justice League No Justice, then you should definitely pick this up. This has everything you would want in a Justice League title. A very iconic lineup, universal cataclysmic threats, and the Legion of Doom. All those things really help sort of resonate back to Grant Morrison's JLA series, which was sort of a return to the original 7 concept, which was widely successful. And I think we can expect the same success from Scott Snyder's Justice League. Hey, maybe even more. Also, this issue has many Easter eggs to a lot of DC continuity, and I think the most notable one is the shape of the Legion of Doom's base. The most interesting aspect I think for this issue and what this series is going to have is going to be the rivalry between Martian Manhunter and Lex Luthor. I know that sounds odd, but Scott Snyder kind of set that up in the final issue of No Justice, and it's a very odd pairing, but at the same time it's very intriguing, because even though there are a number of DC heroes that people say are like the #1 DC hero, Jon Jones is pretty much closely associated with being the heart of the Justice League. And I think having him with some sort of direct competition with Lex Luthor, who's the leader of the Legion of Doom, is a good way to kick off this series. This is the first time the Martian Manhunter has been in the main Justice League title since the start of the New 52. So I would highly... yes, he was in Justice League of America, but that wasn't really like the main Justice League title at the time, okay? But yeah, Justice League, it was a fantastic opener. I'm really looking forward to it. I've loved Scott Snyder's work, and I can't wait to see what he has in store for the Justice League. Alright, that's it. Thank you again for watching. Remember to stay subscribed and notified for whenever I post a new video. Also, follow me on Twitter, because I always have the new video links pop up in my Twitter feed. Thanks again for watching. I'm Lewis Spider-Man 1991, saying see you later.